Did you ever enjoy those old black and white detective movies from the 1940s and the 1950s? If so, I've got a movie for you. Hi, I'm Andy Farnsworth from KSL's Fan Effect podcast, and here's my review of the movie Motherless Brooklyn.
Fan Effect.
The movie genre is called film noir, and some truly classic films are considered to be made in that style. The Maltese Falcon, Citizen Kane, Kiss Me Deadly, and Murder My Sweet, to name a few. They usually involved a gumshoe, a private eye, the trench coat wearing, world-weary guy who usually talks to the audience via voiceover. Well, former Oscar nominee Edward Norton does his best to represent that style of storytelling in Motherless Brooklyn, a film that he produced, wrote, directed, and stars in, and one he's been trying to get to the big screen for over 2 decades. Interestingly enough, many film noir movies were based on books, and Motherless Brooklyn is as well, based on the book of the same name by Jonathan Lethem. But it also incorporates elements of the Pulitzer Prize-winning biography The Power Broker by Robert Caro about the life of New York developer Robert Moses. For some reason, the trailers led me to believe this film was about organized crime, but nope, it's just a good old-fashioned detective movie. In the film, Norton plays Lionel Esrog, a lonely private investigator living with Tourette's syndrome in the early 1950s. He's got nearly a photographic memory, but his tics and his verbal outbursts cause many to regard him as a freak. He works at an agency for his mentor and only friend Frank Minna, played by Bruce Willis. But when something bad happens to Minna, Lionel sets out to discover what or who is behind it, and he unravels closely guarded secrets that hold the fate of thousands of New Yorkers in the balance. The mystery carries him from gin-soaked jazz clubs in Harlem to the hard-edged Brooklyn slums, and finally to the very offices of New York's power brokers, as Lionel contends with thugs, corruption, and the most dangerous man in the city to honor his friend and save the woman, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who might be his own salvation. First of all, I found Motherless Brooklyn to be an interesting story about power, racism, classism, and loyalty, with surprisingly relevant viewpoints that still apply today, even though the movie was set in the 50s. The Motherless Brooklyn novel was actually set in modern times, but Norton chose to set the movie in the past, which had to have been a challenge for his wardrobe and his location scouting teams. But that 1950s location setting, it kind of enhanced the film noir feeling to the point where I kind of wish the movie was black and white just to kind of go all in on the homage. And the setting also allows some of the themes I just mentioned to be explored a little more freely. Though I think many people will likely note that one of the characters appears to share some obvious similarities with President Donald Trump. So, it's worth pointing out that Norton has been working on Motherless Brooklyn since 1999, and he finished the screenplay for it back in 2012, so it doesn't appear to be intentional in that way. The movie also has a great cast. Along with Norton, Willis, and Mbatha-Raw, you'll see lots of familiar faces. Willem Dafoe, Alec Baldwin, Leslie Mann, and Bobby Cannavale, to name several. Norton's performance as Lionel was impressive, in my opinion. I'm not sure how accurate his portrayal of Tourette's was, and some of the tics are played for laughs, but Norton showed again why he's been nominated for an Academy Award in the past. And I also really liked Mbatha-Raw's character, Rose. But the movie itself also felt a little bloated. The runtime of the film is 2 hours and 24 minutes, and there's a lot of story to follow and a lot of characters to keep track of. I'm not sure on just the single viewing maybe what ought to have been cut out, but I feel like something could have been done. And it's rated R for language and violence. While I found Motherless Brooklyn to be an interesting story, a good reminder about the potential dangers of unchecked power, and a fun throwback to an old style of filmmaking, it felt like maybe it might have been better as a streaming series or maybe an HBO miniseries. Honestly, more than one person mentioned to me that's what they thought it was when they saw the commercials for it, was a miniseries. But a miniseries would have allowed that slower development of the story without feeling like too much was being crammed into a single sitting, which is kind of how I felt. I give Motherless Brooklyn 2 out of 4 stars. Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end. Now's your chance to review me. Click like or dislike below and leave a comment. I don't ask you to agree, I just ask you to be respectful. But be sure to watch our other reviews on this same channel, and we invite you to check out our Fan Effect podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Music, where we talk about movies, TV, comics, video games, and more. Pick your favorite podcast spot and search Fan Effect. That's EFFECT. We're also on Twitter and Facebook at Fan Effect Show. Remember, On Fan Effect, we love this stuff just as much as you do.
Fan Effect.